this thing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave.
And I'm John.
And this is Coffee and Capes, our podcast where we talk about two of our most favorite things, drinking coffee and all things geek culture.
We do. Coffee. Cheers, Dave.
Cheers to coffee. Yay, coffee. Keeps us going.
Yay. Yeah.
We are enthusiasts. That's our favorite word to describe how we relate to coffee and comics and geek culture.
Yeah. I think it also probably explains, it's a really good descriptor as to why we can't keep our mouths shut about spoilers.
That's correct. Yes. Just know this going in every single time when we're reviewing something, we blow right through all spoilers. So here's your alert right now. We haven't even told you what we're talking about, but there's going to be spoilers.
The no spoiler etiquette line exists like really close to us, and by the time we're done with the show, we have gone so far past it. This is our one piece of bad etiquette. Anyway, Dave, what is on our agenda today?
Well, should we talk about some coffee before we get into?
Yeah, so our coffee line launches in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, so exciting. So we have these amazing cups. If you would like a cup, reach out to us and let us know. Happy to get you a cup. And today we'll talk about, Heroically
Great Coffee.
Heroically Great Coffee is our happy little tagline that we like to use. And today we're going to talk about one of our roasts. And if you give me just a second, I had it pulled up and then it went away.
Technology is great when it works.
I know, right? So I think that, probably this one makes the most sense when we're talking about the subject that we're going to talk about today, right? So we have our dynamic duo roast, which is, pretty amazing if you know about why that would be. We refer to it as the perfect roast to share with your favorite sidekick, podcast co-host, significant other, comic book enthusiasts. If you're one of those, like Dave and I have done previously in the past, that gets so excited you get up and go to the 3 a.m. showing of which movie was that?
Technically, it was 4 a.m. of Endgame.
Endgame, right? So it's the perfect roast for that. It is a dark roast. Yeah, dark roast, fair trade. It has a medium acidity, full body, smooth chocolatey finish. I don't know about any of you guys, but I do enjoy a little bit of chocolate in taste in my coffee.
As long as it's smooth chocolatey finish, none of those rough chocolatey finishes.
None of those rough chocolatey finishes. No,
that's no point.
So keep an eye out for it. The dynamic duo dark roast will be live in 2 weeks at our website, coffee, the letter N, capes.com.
So great.
You can find that you can find that link in the description of the podcast, or if you're on Instagram, it's in our link tree. Go check it out, sign up. Also, on the coffee launch thing, we have a contest, our Coffee and Capes launch giveaway contest. We've got a couple main prizes. One of those prizes involves a Samsung Galaxy tablet and a year subscription to the Marvel Unlimited app.
What?
So I know, right? It's crazy. You also get some coffee, a to-go tumbler from us. And then in the other prize package, we've got some great stuff. Tyler from @TM_comics on Instagram is contributing to that prize package. You get some coffee from us. And then our favorite people over at Ladybird Provisions, Nicole and Sarah, are kicking in some coffee bombs again.
Thanks, Nicole and Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. And then we're also raising money for Feeding America through that. So you can get 20 entries by donating as little as $1 to Feeding America. We're trying to raise $2,000, but every little bit helps. And we're super grateful when people donate. If you want to enter the contest, however, you do not have to donate. It is not a requirement. You just get like 20 extra entries for donating. And you can find the link for the contest. It'll be in the YouTube description for this episode. It'll be it's in our link tree, the link in Instagram. It will be in the Facebook post as well. So it'll be kind of all over.
And you can find us in all those places. And, if you do make a donation, you will be a hero to the nearly 40 million of our neighbors here in the US that are experiencing hunger scarcity. And
yeah,
like any rational, normal human being, we think that's 40 million too many. And I'm sure you do too. So it's a small way that we can help provide some meals for folks that need the food. So we hope you'll donate. And we hope you'll enter the contest. And thank you for doing all those things.
Yeah. By the way, just so you know, for every $1 donated to Feeding America, they can provide 10 meals to
That's
families.
amazing. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing, right? That's pretty legit. So it's a great thing. What's next, Dave? What we got going on?
Well, I think we got all the propers out of the way, right? You can find us in all those places. If you're watching us on YouTube, hi.
Hello.
Our next segment is our recurring segment is fan fiction, where we like to highlight a comment or an interaction that we've had with somebody on one of our many channels.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. So Dave and I both go to a CrossFit gym, CrossFit Thunderbolt, out here in Oswego, Illinois. Hi, Scott.
Shout out to Molly and Scott. You guys are the best.
Yeah.
And everybody else there.
Yeah, everybody else is great. It's fantastic community. But it's the CrossFit Open, and it's interesting. This comment comes a little bit timely around that because it comes from a guy named Tommy Marquez on Instagram. Tommy Marquez he used to work for CrossFit HQ. They have he and Sean Woodland have a podcast called Talking Elite Fitness. Great podcast if you're into CrossFit. He's been at the games announcing and part of the media for years, and just a great guy. Also fellow nerd and geek. Sean Woodland, also a great guy. Love listening to them. Highly recommend it. But on the Riddler post that we posted this last week around the Batman, Tommy chimed in and said, loved it. Front to back. I might like it more than The Dark Knight. Ledger's Joker was all time, but the movie and the Nolan trilogy was largely by its villains and antagonists. The tone, cinematography, and unpolished nature of this Batman and Gordon was so good in the detective noir type style. Modeling this Riddler after the Zodiac Killer gave a more true to life feel to the character as well. Man, first of all, a little bit might stir up a little controversy with some people to say that it was better than The Dark Knight. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I agree with a lot of what he said. The noir style was really apparent, really apparent. And Paul Dano as the Riddler and the way that they did the Riddler this time around, we talked about this, so good. So
absolutely.
So thanks, Tommy, for that comment.
Yeah,
we really appreciate it. Appreciate you interacting and following and giving us a listen.
Absolutely appreciate it. I think one of the things that made Batman Begins so good is that I thought it was more focused on Batman and not so much focused on the villain. So that might be a point in which I would disagree just a little bit with Tommy, but I understand the sentiment, and as we'll see, I think it compares very favorably to some of the Nolan stuff too.
Yeah. Speaking of,
so shocking nobody, John and I saw The Batman.
Yeah, it was so good. I'm gonna go see it again this weekend.
Nice. Yes. I have not seen it a second time. Definitely want to. But we are going to talk about The Batman. Not just Batman, The Batman.
The Batman, right? Yeah.
Yes. And again, spoilers abound. So if you haven't seen it yet and you want to maintain your spoiler innocence, you probably should pause right now and go see the movie and then come back and listen to what we have to say.
Yeah. I absolutely, because we are going to blow through this thing and talk about it all.
Yep. We will spoil the bleep out of it.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this right up front. I was so nervous about this movie.
Sure. Yes. Because as we've talked about multiple times, including just last week, DC's track record, pretty meh.
Right. DC's track record, pretty meh. Really, what I thought initially was an odd casting for Batman. Robert Pattinson, right? I think immediately brings up for most of us the sparkly vampire in Twilight guy, right? That's what he became known for. And it's really easy to just kind of be like, really? I mean, that was my reaction. I was like, the Twilight guy?
Yeah, and he's been in a lot of stuff since. Little bit smaller movies, perhaps. Certainly nothing like huge studio, franchise thing like this. And I'll admit I've heard good reviews about a lot of them. I have not seen most of them.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about the casting, and they said, hey, you should go and watch some of the other stuff he's done since Twilight. It's darker, it's grittier. He's done some really great stuff, and he's a really strong, solid actor. Right. Like, all right, I mean, I'll check it out. And I did. I checked out, I can't remember the name of it now, but I was pleasantly surprised at his ability to portray someone who, was not the like teen heartthrobby, like ethereal, everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's Robert Pattinson. It was not like, people would not be doing that during the movie.
Right. I hear really good things about The Lighthouse. I have not seen that. I need to see
I haven't seen that either, with him and Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
He had the Batman and the Goblin.
Right. He was in Tenet.
He was in Tenet. He was good in Tenet. So I liked him in Tenet as well. I forgot he was in Tenet.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit nerve-wracking. However, I was so excited to see Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman.
She was terrific.
She did not disappoint either.
No, not at all. And we got Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon. I think that was an inspired choice. That guy's good in everything he does.
Everything. Westworld, he is so good in Westworld, man. But everything he does, you're right.
Yeah, even stuff that's bad. I watched Hold the Dark, the Netflix movie, the other day. It's trash and makes no sense whatsoever, but he's good in it. No, it literally makes no sense at all. Yeah, but and then how about Colin Farrell as Penguin?
Oh, okay. I'm a big Colin Farrell fan. Like I've seen Colin Farrell in a lot of stuff outside of his portrayal of Bullseye and the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. He was in The Gentleman, which is a Guy Ritchie movie starring Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah,
so good in that movie. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Oh man, yeah, that's a great movie. Great movie, and he was awesome in it.
I saw him in The Lobster. I thought that was really, really weird and not as good as I was promised.
Yeah, I didn't see that one, but he's done a lot of stuff that I really enjoy him in.
Yeah,
his portrayal of Penguin was let's talk about the people in it, and then we can talk about, I guess, the movie. So who else did we have in it? We had and then Paul Dano as the Riddler.
Right. And then we had John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. We got Andy Serkis, like actually in person and not just doing a Gollum suit or whatever. The stop, capture, motion stuff.
Which is what he became known
Alfred.
For.
Right. Yeah.
He's so good at Alfred, by the way.
Yeah, a subdued role, but I liked it.
Yeah. There are a lot of like different ways they looked at the relationships that Bruce has, and we'll get into that stuff. So,
and then I think the other big one, Peter Sarsgaard as the district attorney, Coulson.
Yeah, which he wasn't in for very long.
No, but he made an impact.
Great. Yeah, he did make an impact, right? Significant impact. So, Dave, let's just dive in. Robert Pattinson is the Batman. Holy geez. Matt Reeves as the director, first of all, had a vision and just stuck to it. And man, what a good job.
Yeah, I think we talked last week. Was that last week? I think about the whole cinematography thing. And well, I'm certainly no expert about what that means. My understanding of like the look and the feel. So cinematography, maybe lighting, the mood that stuff creates. This movie had it in spades, man. This movie was so good. Like it looked dark and gloomy, and it was like raining just about all the time. A lot of kind of red undertones. It just made it kind of creepy. It just, like you said, it had that sort of noir feel to it that I thought really, really worked for the detective story. I love that it was mostly a detective story, that we haven't seen that so much on screen with Batman.
It was an interesting evolution of him as a detective, right? In my opinion, like, and as a character. So it's fair to say, you know, we should point out that this is early on in his time as Batman. Like, he's only 2 years into being Batman, but there's, you know, they didn't do an origin, which thank you. Like, we don't have to rehash every time we reboot a movie. We don't have to rehash the origin of it.
And of course they reference it because they have to, but we didn't spend a lot of time on it, and kind of gave it a little different spin as well.
Different spin. Yeah.
Which I appreciated.
Man, I tell you, there's a scene that sticks out for me, and it was in the trailer, and it's fine that it was in the trailer, but that scene where he's coming for, I think he's coming for Falcone. And he's going through, and it's dark, and everybody's shooting at him, and it's just muzzle flashes as he's moving forward through everything.
And the muzzle flash is the only thing creating light in the hallway that he's walking through.
Yeah, and it's just, there were some really great parts of this. We talked about last week as well. One of the things that I really enjoyed was the tone they set at the very beginning of the movie, where the bat signal's in the sky, he's doing a little bit of narration, and people are committing crimes, but then all of a sudden, like, they look up and see the bat signal in the sky, and they're looking down these dark alleys and these pitch dark areas, and you can see fear.
Yes.
Like, just,
they never know where he's gonna be. He can't be everywhere, but he might be in that shadow coming for you.
Right. And he's brutal. It's important to point out, like, this is in my opinion, the most savage and brutal version of the Batman we've seen yet.
I mean, he's definitely more so than the Christian Bale version. I don't know. Like, if you think about a couple of those scenes with Ben Affleck in Batman v Superman, he's pretty brutal in that too.
He is, but I don't know. I think maybe because this felt more grounded
in reality, as opposed to like a huge comic book. Like, I hear you. Yeah,
his moves weren't like otherworldly. Like, man, that scene where in the beginning he was taking on what we assumed to be like a group of people that were Joker disciples.
Yeah.
And he beats that first guy. Like,
and doesn't stop.
No.
Yeah.
Like, he's down on the ground. Like, he's not, you know, in the past, even with the Ben Affleck stuff, he takes somebody out and he leaves them.
Right.
Robert Pattinson took that guy down and hit him, I don't know how many additional times.
Yeah.
To make his point. Like, you saw.
To create that fear. And you saw it in the rest of the gang reacting.
The other thing that I think that this brings up for me too, and I don't know what you thought about it, Robert Pattinson had like just the most intense eyes under the cowl. Like, all business, no, like his stare, like you look at it in our pictures. Like, if you tilt off a little bit to the side, like, that was his look the entire time. Like, that's a very, I'm not here to play with you look. We're not going to be friends.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's great. I can't argue that he is effectively brutal in a way that makes sense for a guy who's still creating his making his mark in
Yeah.
Gotham.
Yeah, and you know, as the movie evolved, it was really interesting. One of the complaints that I saw somebody make in a review was that there was no Bruce Wayne. There was very little like Bruce Wayne. There was no Playboy, you know, Bruce
Right.
Wayne to it. But in the terms of this stage of Batman, he didn't care.
Right.
You know, he wasn't, like you pointed out. What was the line from John Turturro when Bruce Wayne shows up at his door?
Oh yeah. So they show up at the funeral, and Carmine Falcone says to him as Bruce Wayne, like, "Oh look, this funeral brought out the one guy who's more reclusive in Gotham than me."
Yeah.
Indicating that Bruce Wayne has not been gallivanting around, has not been seen in public. And I think there were a couple other things, like the reaction to the press or whatever at that moment, trying to get a word from it. It really drove home, at least I thought, that idea that Bruce Wayne has not been a public figure.
Yeah. And you know, he was in a very different emotional state, because his interaction with Alfred for most of the part was very dismissive, very like, you know,
stop trying to ground me in reality. Stop trying to slow me down. Stop trying to pull me back.
Well, and you know, what caught me was what really kind of hit that home for me, and where Batman was in his journey and in becoming who he's going to become, we assume, because there is a sequel that's been greenlit, was, you know, he needed cufflinks for something. And Alfred said, "Here, take mine." And he looks down and he's like, you know, they were cufflinks like his father.
They had a W on them. Like, "Oh, are you a Wayne now?"
Yeah. Makes
dummy,
that comment, right?
Yeah. It's kind of snide and snarky and kind of crappy, actually. Dismissive and yeah.
And you know, Alfred's response was, "Your father gave me these."
Yeah.
You know, and that was, we've never seen, I can't think of any time in any of the Batman franchises that we've seen that kind of dismissiveness from Bruce Wayne to Alfred, like that level of like almost like you're a servant.
Yeah.
So be a servant, right? Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons had years of working, you know, Batman together, and they had that banter that went back and forth, but there was still respect.
For sure. And Ben Affleck and Michael Caine were, you know, they definitely had the witty repartee thing going.
Yeah. But
there's none of that here. There was none of that here. It's just
not early on.
Even a little bit of mistrust.
Yeah, a little bit of mistrust.
That played out when, you know, again, spoilers here, but it played out when Alfred was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like it took that moment for Bruce to realize, oh gosh, I really do care about this guy. And
when he's in the hospital and he realized like this person matters. And that's when we started to see a different evolution. Like there became this evolution and that we'll get to it, I think, in a little bit. So phenomenal job by Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves to bring just a vicious, but to your point, a detective movie to the screen, right? I was personally the most impressed with the way that they did the Riddler. Because the Riddler in like other movies has been a punchline, right? Almost. Jim Carrey's portrayal was very over the top, you know, as that movie itself was.
And he's going to be. I mean, you don't cast Jim Carrey to be that character to have him be all like serious. But right, yeah, we're used to, and in the comics a lot of times too, he's pretty much of a joke, and
even among other criminals, like other criminals kind of consider him to be man. I think probably the most intelligent we've seen the Riddler was probably in Hush, the Hush storyline, right, where he kind of manipulated that whole situation,
right,
and we got to see but historically, yeah, he's always been kind of like a joke. Riddle me this, you
Yeah.
know, and this time around,
No, this was hardcore. And speaking of, that was one of the complaints that I saw online. Like, oh my gosh, this was not family friendly. Yeah, no, it truly is not. This is
yeah,
not
no,
a
you're,
Batman movie to take your 8-year-old to.
yeah, no, yeah, definitely not. And that got established. I mean,
Right away.
not,
Yeah.
yeah,
With Riddler
with,
just in the dark, like all of a sudden there's a flash of lightning or whatever, and you see him there, and oh my gosh, like brutally murders the dude.
it had, it's closer to me in feel to the movie Seven
Yeah.
than to like any of the Batman movies that have come before it.
I totally agree. And as Tommy said in our fan fiction there, like, or also reminiscent of Zodiac. Way more
Zodiac,
like
yeah.
Zodiac and Seven than Batman and Robin with the, I'm going to put you on ice and the nipples. Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing jokey about this movie. There are a couple of light moments and a couple of funny moments, but there's nothing light about it.
Yeah, no, the only like moment where I thought I was gonna laugh out loud was that penguin moment where they dumped him off,
Yeah.
right? And he was bound by his hands and he's
And
bound
his
by his
feet, and so
ankles, and he's like, "You guys just gonna leave me here?" And he had to kind of like
he kind of waddles.
waddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was funny.
Right.
But at that stage of the movie, you had been like hammered by watching the Riddler murder people in horribly brutal ways.
Horrific ways. I mean, he took the one face cage thing straight out of George Orwell in 1984, right? Like the
Right.
rats in the cage. Like,
It's very Saw-esque,
yes, true. Yeah.
right? There's like pieces of like the Saw movies, like, you know, just, man, Paul Dano. First of all, the way they like dressed up the Riddler with,
and you can see it on your background there. Like,
right,
and mine,
yeah,
a little bit, I guess.
yeah, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't have the you know what we're used to seeing Edward Nygma in, which is like the bowler hat, and he's got the cane, and he wears a suit. This was creepy serial murder guy.
Right. And like all taped up to presumably not put off any DNA evidence or something.
Yeah, very smart.
Yeah. But I really like the glasses on the outside of the mask. Like there's something about that look that, I mean, obviously somebody who's going to do this is not all there, but it's just a little touch that makes you go, what is happening here?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's not all there.
No. And you thought, at least I thought early on, that he was, you know, it would be easy to dismiss him as kind of just a kook. But clearly he was, you know, playing a game. Like he had a game that he was playing, and he, despite Batman's evolution, like showing Batman as the detective and kind of that evolution of becoming even an even better detective, like he was starting to kind of go through that. This was probably like that case that really pushed him. The Riddler had them every step of the way. He walked them into every single situation. Like,
for sure. It was always 3 steps ahead.
Yeah, always 3 steps ahead. Like, even when they caught him.
Right.
Even when they caught him, he was, you know, multiple steps
back the
ahead.
rug, and he'd already set that whole thing up.
Yeah. Who knows how long before, right?
Yeah.
And it was just, he was creepy. The way they set up his voice, the weird lighting and videos, right? Just like everything. And to your point, it was enhanced by the cinematography and the art direction, because it was just this dark, rainy, unhappy place.
Yeah. And yet I think the videos that Riddler posted that they showed in the movie, deep down, he's a guy searching for belonging and community like every other human being. He just went about it in a really, really, really horrible, terrible, awful, murderous way.
Right. Well, and he was broken, right? He'd
Yeah.
spent time in a broken system for orphans that ravaged him. I mean, his story about when he was explaining life in the orphanage.
Yeah. Ugh.
Right. That was horrible.
Yeah. That could break anybody.
Yeah. And so it wasn't surprising that he came out of it all messed up. But man, yeah, he did great. Let's talk about the Penguin before we get to like Catwoman, because the Penguin's getting his own show, and I think it has the potential to be a really interesting show because the makeup that they put on. This was a really sharp, well done Penguin.
Yeah, and to me, you couldn't even tell that it was Colin Farrell, and I've heard some complaints about that. Oh, it's too much prosthetics, too much makeup, can't even tell. I liked that. I don't want to sit there thinking, oh, hey, look, there's Colin Farrell.
Yeah. It would have taken out of it.
I agree. I don't know why that would be a complaint. That's like the people that complain, oh, it's 3 hours. Okay, so like, I don't understand why you care how long it is. Yeah. Unless you don't like, I mean, if you just don't like it, then it doesn't matter if it's 90 minutes or if it's 3 hours.
Yeah. Like, if it's not what you wanted to see.
Yeah.
It wasn't what you wanted to see.
Right. So I thought Penguin was great. It was a little bit of not quite levity, but something approaching levity in the movie sometimes. I think what his motivation is, whose side is he on? Like they kind of played that. Like probably is just out for himself, but is he the rat? Is he not?
Yeah, that was interesting. Like that was the one that like Batman gets stumped on.
Yeah.
Right. Who is the rat? And that really challenged his skills as a detective and made him kind of like stretch that and realize, oh, I got to be smarter. Even at the end when he's talking to Riddler in Arkham, and the Riddler looks at him and goes, oh, you're not as smart as I thought you were.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, what's happened?
Yeah. Although it did take Batman a little too long to come to the realization that a bat is also a flying rodent.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that would have been a natural connection. But they did a really nice job of misdirection, though, in a number of areas too, right?
Yeah.
But so the Penguin I thought was great. I absolutely think it was phenomenal.
And the car chase scene, again, even though we saw the conclusion of that, or mostly the conclusion of that in the trailer, that was so well done and so fun. And I like the way it was shot from behind, Penguin always looking behind him and Batman always looking forward, and just that the point of view from those things was great. And the Batmobile was fun. Like it wasn't, comic book super car or some humongous tank. It was a souped up car. Maybe I'm not a car guy, but maybe a Charger or something like that.
It was so good. It was so good. And when he was sitting in it, like the first time we saw it in action, and he's revving the engine, and all it is that red glow from underneath the hood and the lights. That, if you're a criminal, I mean, I sat there and I was like, oh, that's so good. It's so scary. Like, so creepy looking. There was that
very intimidating.
Yeah, right. And not intimidating because everybody was like, oh, it's Batman. Because there were very clear moments that people weren't intimidated by him too. Right. True. They thought they could take him. And so it wasn't always, oh, it's Batman and we should be scared. Sometimes it was like, okay, that's just scary. Like that's just a scary moment on screen. They didn't shy away from making Batman scary too.
Right. And that was his point. He was trying to be scary in the first like 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah.
And another complaint I've heard was, well, there's not enough action. In fact, right away, the guy that was sitting next to us that we talked to a little bit, he said, not really enough action. I'm like, well, it's true. There wasn't a ton, but I thought the action there was top notch.
Yeah. I thought that there was, so if we're talking about it in terms of kind of where we think it ranks, right? I put it really close to The Dark Knight. personally. I mean, really close. And if we think about that in terms of a comparison,
Yeah.
I think action wise, it's pretty similar. Like the amount of action sequences, there's more in The Dark Knight, like
Yeah.
for sure, but it wasn't like action from beginning to end, right? We had a lot of stuff that was just kind of happening, like as they were trying to figure out the Joker and his motivation. Like there's similar stuff in here.
Yeah. For me, I would say I have it ahead of Dark Knight Rises, not quite to the level of Dark Knight. And as far as it compares to Batman Begins, I think they're right there. They have some similarities in the story, maybe a little recency bias. I might put this ahead of Batman Begins. There's some things about Batman Begins that I really like as Tommy said, I really think Batman Begins was good in part because it did focus on Batman and not.
He was talking about Dark Knight, but
oh, he was. I thought
yeah.
he said he had it ahead of Batman Begins.
Yeah, he does. He's got it up there with like the Dark Knight.
Anyway, I don't think it's quite as good as Dark Knight. That's still the standard for me, but this was phenomenal.
Yeah, I have it ahead of Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins, and I put it super close. And I put it super close because of the standout work of the villains that were included. For me, Batman Begins, yeah, we had Ra's al Ghul and we had Scarecrow, but what was the guy's name that plays Scarecrow? Because he's in Peaky Blinders. He's phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh gosh, now I lost it too. But
I can't remember his name.
Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, thank you. Cillian Murphy is amazing. That dude's an amazing actor.
But that character is not nearly as interesting as
they didn't make him as interesting.
Correct. Right.
Yeah. And if we're kind of running through the cast that I think really augmented this one and brought it up, you can't do that without talking about Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman.
She's fantastic. Easily the best on-screen Catwoman that we've seen.
Hands down.
Light years ahead of Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer was given a super weird role to play, but light years ahead of that. And frankly, I liked Anne Hathaway, but light years ahead of Anne Hathaway too. So Zoe Kravitz, to me, really embodied this character of Catwoman, like the ethos, the physicality, the gymnastics, the motivation, the caring about. I mean, she says it like I can't resist a stray.
Yeah.
It's another one of the few light moments. You've got a lot of cats.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. You have a lot of cats. I can't resist a stray. I agree. So we talked about this afterwards as well. Michelle Pfeiffer, we've talked about this. The Batman Returns is Tim Burton's second, and only other film making Batman. And Tim Burton 100% has his style and his feel to things. And we see that in anything that he does. And I love Tim Burton, and he's done some great stuff. He's done some stuff that I don't care for, that I think was a little bit over the top. Batman Returns, Catwoman had a really weird origin.
None of that made sense. And it didn't, well, I mean, it was a thing, but there's no connection from that to, comic stories, which is okay. Not everything has to connect to a comic, but
it was a little far out though from that. And don't get me wrong, like when did that come out?
92 maybe,
something like that. So that would have been like 19-20-year-old me thought Michelle Pfeiffer looked amazing in the Catwoman suit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the fan in me was like, this is weird.
Yeah,
it's weird. And then we got the Halle Berry Catwoman movie, which again was weird and did a weird origin.
Selena Kyle, was it?
Oh, I don't even remember, man. Like
I
don't care to go back and watch it. And,
and
I love Halle Berry, like
sure, yeah.
But man, that was a terrible movie. It was not good. And then Anne Hathaway, I thought she did a better job than anybody before her.
Yeah.
As Selena Kyle. But to your point, if we're looking at against like the comic, and we're looking about being true to kind of the character and really nailing and embodying the character that came off the pages, Zoe Kravitz, all day, every day, like just crushed that role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I liked the relationship, like the burgeoning relationship between the Bat and the Cat. Like that's, I wish they'd given her a little more to do. You know, I would have been happy to have her on screen more, develop her story more. And, you know, maybe that's a thing they can do in the future. But, you know, I think that was a big piece in helping Batman evolve too, to like there are people to care about.
Yeah.
And they had that instant connection and instant attraction and instant care for each other. You know, and you saw it like in the scene where she's undercover with him in the club, like he's just driving her to put herself in danger. And she's like had a couple moments. She's like, screw you, man. I'm not doing that. Like, I love that she pushes back against him.
Yeah. And it showed that like, how strong she is. And but to your point too, from earlier, her physicality and gymnastics and fearlessness and like her fighting, oh man, she was great.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just absolutely phenomenal.
And from that first moment when Batman's watching her through the binoculars and she like does that flippy move off the fire escape.
Yeah.
Like it set the tone right away. And the whole fire escape thing, like just it's such the Catwoman vibe. Like they really, I thought really got that.
She moved with grace.
Yes.
She moved with the grace that like you would expect Selena Kyle like to move with. There was nothing that felt jerky or unnatural about the way she moved. And she really did move so smooth and so well.
Yeah.
It was a very...
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it was the perfect foil for the Batman's brutality.
Yes. Good. I love that she kept calling him Vengeance. Hey, Vengeance, what are you gonna do? Right? Because after he called himself, I'm Vengeance. she didn't even hear him say that, I don't think, but somehow she picked up on that. I don't remember how she picked up on that, but I just thought it was a great little note that every time she referred to him, it was as Vengeance.
Well, and that, you know, early on, it was interesting. He referred to himself as Vengeance, and it was clear that he was starting to like, he was trying to be fear. He was trying to create fear until he's talking to the Riddler, right? And they're in Arkham, and the Riddler starts talking about how he inspired him.
Yeah.
How Batman inspired him. His, you know, they were the same, and they were both vengeance, and they were both, you know, taking revenge on the city for all the wrongs that it had done. And you saw a level of realization in Batman's face of, what have I done?
Right. And then it really came home, and that in the final fight, which had that great moment of Batman come flying out of the fog, like onto the Riddler disciple guy. That was terrific. But at the end of that fight, the one remaining Riddler disciple says, what'd you do this for? And he says, vengeance.
Yeah.
And that stops Batman in his tracks. Like, oh, bleep. Maybe vengeance isn't the way to go.
Yeah. It clearly like stopped him in his tracks. Like he just stopped moving, and you saw and it reflected in his next couple moments, right? In his next,
I'm gonna go out in the day, and I'm gonna help people. And you saw like how afraid the mayor and some of her staff were of him when he was trying to pull him out of the water. Until
the little kid,
right?
The little kid who's the mayor's son, right? It was the mayor's son.
Okay. Oh, right. The former mayor. The
former mayor that was
the murdered mayor.
Yeah. It was his son, and Batman's holding out his hand, trying to get the current mayor, like the mayor-elect, to come with him, and the little kid steps out of the back and takes his hand.
Yeah.
And you know, that triggered everybody else doing it. But yeah, everybody was terrified of him. People were like, the police hated him.
For sure.
right?
A great dynamic too, that every single time he shows up, the police are like, what are you doing here? Why are we letting this happen?
It wasn't like in
Yeah.
the other stuff that we've seen where it's like, you know, everybody was accepting of him and was glad he was there and he was helping out. And sure, Gordon was, yeah, 100%. But this was a very different, like, and then at the end, well, you know, before the end, when they found the thing underneath the rug, the police officer who had always given him such a hard time, Martinez, right, was like, oh, hey, you know, like talking to him. And it was interesting to see, to go from the beginning of the movie where it was just brutal, hardcore, nobody likes him, nobody's sure really what he's about, doesn't seem to care about anything other than like vengeance.
Yes.
Right. To that point. Yeah, the mission. Like, he doesn't care about being Bruce Wayne. He doesn't care about losing all of his money.
Right. He's
like,
literally
this is
to Alfred.
Yeah. And then the end, when he realizes he has to be more.
Yeah.
Like, he can't just be this destructive vigilante that goes through without, you know, thinking of the city. He has a responsibility to those he cares about, and he cares about the city.
Right. And yet, similar to what we talked about at the end of Peacemaker, where like he had a chance to kind of pick a different way, and he had to stick with the mission. In the end, he's got a chance to go off with Selina.
Yeah.
Decides to choose the mission over his own perhaps personal happiness, which is a difficult choice to make, and you can critique that if you want, but it's true to the character.
Right. It tracks with everything we know. He's not going to walk away from anything.
Yeah.
You know, and we've seen in the comics, like, the loss that he has experienced and the choices that he's had to make and walk away from the people that he's had to walk away from, to be able to continue doing what he needs to do to keep Gotham safe for everybody that lives there.
Right. And that's true to the story as it usually goes between the Bat and the Cat, that they come together and then they get pushed apart, and they come together and they, you know, something drives them apart again. That, you know, it's setting up that the possibility for that relationship to continue in that way. I mean, I gotta think we haven't seen the last of Catwoman.
Yeah, no, there's no way. There's no way we've seen the last of Catwoman. And if we have, that would be a tragedy.
Yes.
Epic proportions. Let's talk about it. So there's the piece at the end where Riddler's in Arkham.
And somebody's in Arkham with him.
Yeah, right. So interesting, before we dive into who's in Arkham with him, it was really interesting to see, like, this had been happening for so long, that Batman had been doing this long enough to have put other well-known characters that we know and love in Arkham.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not going to like get reintroduced to somebody. We were just shown, hey, and it was clear from the profile and the way that he spoke and the, you know, the little bit that we got to see of his face, the person in the cell next to the Riddler was the Joker.
Yes. Interestingly, his official IMDb, Barry Keoghan plays unseen Arkham prisoner.
Yeah. But we all know, anybody that's seen the movie, you know who it is.
Yes.
And the fact that it's Barry Keoghan, who, if people aren't sure, right, the name doesn't ring familiar, or maybe it does, but you can't place it. He was Druig in the Eternals.
Right.
He was in Dunkirk. He's a really good actor who's been in a number of things, and while Matt Reeves is saying, hey, it doesn't mean you're going to get the Joker in the sequel, it doesn't mean we're going to do anything with that, we're just, you know, we just did it to establish the fact that, like, hey, this exists. he's like, it wasn't an Easter egg, it wasn't a hint, it wasn't, you know, any of those things. But I can't imagine you bring in somebody of the caliber of Barry Keoghan
For just
can't
a 2-minute throwaway.
Right, a 2-minute throwaway, especially, and we talked about this. The little side profile that we got was the most comics accurate side profile we've seen in so long, with the scar, and you can see everything kind of pulled back, but he also had the fade hair and the crazy top.
Right.
I just,
and he says the riddle me this line.
Yep. Yeah, because Paul Dano's character is losing his mind.
Yeah.
Right. He's losing it, and the Joker's like, don't cry. It's like, don't do that. Don't let them win. Riddle me this. And then he gives him the riddle of, you know, I can't remember how it goes.
What it was either, but
right. It's like, what do you have when you have one, like, or something, whatever? But the answer was a friend. Right. And Paul Dano's character starts laughing, and there's, you know, they start laughing together, and it's, you know, you have a friend. I would love to see them do, and I guess it got pushed. There was talk of doing it, and maybe it got pushed, but I'd love to see them do an Arkham show on like HBO Max. That would be fascinating.
Yeah, I thought that was the one that was happening. That they pushed. They're not doing the Gotham Police Department thing.
Right. They're not doing. Okay. Yeah. They're not doing.
They are doing some sort of Arkham show, like sort of horror style Arkham show.
Yeah. Which that'd be so cool if they do it. Because there's so many insane, crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, Scarecrow, if done right, could be really phenomenal. You've got Two-Face. You know, all these other characters that are very classic. They end up in Arkham. But the other interesting thing about this, there were so many rumors going into this that would they try and tie this Batman into the Joaquin Phoenix Joker universe and bring them together.
And now it's very clear. Not a thing. Yeah.
No, and Matt Reeves said very clearly, he's like, we had no intention of doing it. We had no intention of bridging that. So now we're in an interesting spot where we have like multiple DC, like,
right. And this has been our problem with DC. Something, again, we talked about last episode. DC's got like 7 universes going, and not in the like good, fun multiverse way.
Yeah, no, it's so confusing, you know. So how does that? So that Joker's completely standalone, and this Batman standalone, and neither one of them are tied into the Black Adam, Shazam universe with Aquaman and all that got pushed back and moved around.
That was big news since we just talked about all this last week, and since then they've announced that Shazam is moving up. Black Adam is moving back a little bit, I think, to October. Shazam's moving up to December, and Flash and Aquaman are moving to 2023. Right.
It was so weird.
Yeah. The only thing I can think is they want to put Black Adam and Shazam kind of back to back and connect those somehow.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if they're now looking at Black Adam as like a tent pole to build a new DC universe around.
Could be. With
the introduction of like the other characters that are going to come into it because you could set up like a Justice League that's very different with Black Adam as the, you know, maybe like the Superman position, or maybe it's, you know, Shazam in the Superman position, and you've got, you know, whatever. Maybe they're doing that.
Like maybe they're gonna dark thing, maybe with Dr. Dark. I don't know. Yeah. I don't. Maybe. As we've said before, it's hard to trust them to have a good long-term vision. Yeah. But maybe they should give it all to Matt Reeves, because this was terrific. I think it's pretty obvious, but in our patented Coffee and Capes rating system, John, what did you give?
I was totally overwhelmed. Like, absolutely. What a phenomenal movie. Like, hand Matt Reeves the keys to the future of Batman. And as far as I'm concerned, to your point, like, they should give him like, hey, what characters do you want? Do you want to do a Superman movie? And, you know, could you do that and lighten it up and bring in a much younger.
It'd be interesting to see. Could he go the other way with it? You know,
It'd be
could
hard.
he do? Could he do a hopeful, bright-colored?
Because it'd have to be.
Yeah, because we've done the Dark Superman, and it did not work at all.
No, but I would like to see Henry Cavill get a shot at being hopeful, happy Superman.
Absolutely.
His physical presence, like. Anyway, Dave, what about you?
Oh, absolutely overwhelmed. As you can tell from the way we're gushing about this movie, you need to see it if you haven't. It's really, really so very good. Great detective story, great noir look and feel, great non-origin story, but setting up. It's not the origin, but it's setting up kind of his beginning and why he does what he does.
Yeah, they did a nice job without like diving back into the well of, oh, now we got to tell the origin again. It was like, and we didn't even touch on, the spin that they put on Bruce and Martha, right? With Martha being
Thomas
from the
and Martha.
Arkham, Thomas and Martha.
Yeah,
and
right.
With Martha being from the Arkham family and having a history of mental illness, and Thomas running for mayor and getting killed, but like Falcone murdering the reporter and saying Thomas hired him to do it. And there's so much more there that we didn't even touch on. But
we hardly touched on Gordon either. I thought Jeffrey Wright was terrific as Gordon.
Jeffrey Wright was phenomenal as Gordon.
He's got gravitas. I liked the relationship between he and Batman. That was so good.
I like him as an actor a whole lot.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a whole lot. So guys, go see it. Like 100%. I'm gonna go see it with our friends Brian and Nick actually tomorrow night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I know you can't go
see it again, but my son, we saw it with my son, and he saw it again the next day with his buddies. Like it's.
Did he really?
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So good.
I mean, I'll go see it a third time. So when you're ready to go see it, like hands down. And maybe like.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say we'll have to see what Brian and Nick think about it and bring some of that in.
Yeah.
Anyway,
tell us what you think. What did you see it? What did you think? What did you like? Where did you think it missed? Where, always, as always, let us know what we got wrong here. Where we want to hear different perspectives. So we look forward to your comments, and maybe you too will show up in fan fiction one day.
Did you say you too or YouTube?
I'll leave that to you to decide. There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for journeying with us yet again. Connect with us in all the socials and all the podcast ways, and check out coffeeandcapes.com for our launch page. And we look forward to talking to you again next week. Until then, true believers, bye.
Bye, guys.